So I've been using Unreal almost a month now, and there's a couple of things that I like it, and there are a couple of things that I hate about it. Let's talk about it. So let's get rid of the pet peeves, shall we? So the first off is poor documentation. Unreal has a lot of poor documentation. Especially when it comes to C++. I like it to be more like C# in Unity, where they explain some couple of stuff, but also show examples how to use it and when to use it, and in a more integrated videos by their core audience, sort of. One other thing that I hate about Unreal is the poor integration with Visual Studio. Now Visual Studio is getting some helps with C++, mainly hot reload and other couple of stuff, but I'm still a little bit pissed off that Visual Studio is not well integrated to Unreal like Unity. Unity is not the best either, but they have a tool where you can show that like the folder structure in more similar to Unity, whereas Unreal doesn't have that. One of the key features in Unreal when coding is the macros. So if you want to use your property, your function, your class, your struct, whatever you want to do to make visible in the editor, you need to use the macros. But the only problem is you either have to download a plugin, a extension basically, to show you how to implement that, or you need to keep a reminder of how to implement every macro in the Unreal Engine, which is kind of a little bit disappointing since Unreal is so big and great. So let's say I want to kill the player, so you would do kill player parenthesis and let's say no parameter. So you mark that as your function. Well, if you copy the function and have a parameter, for example, let's say actor, damage actor, or the other actor, something like that, and you support u function as well, it doesn't really expose that to blueprint, which I would hope, because it's a very big deal when it comes to object-oriented programming. So I don't know why Unreal doesn't have really support that blueprint. Speaking of blueprint, blueprint doesn't have also the basic data types. It does have boolean, int, float, but it doesn't have double or uint or ulong. So that's kind of surprising. Also byte and unsigned byte, it doesn't have support for that either, which is kind of weird. I don't know why and I don't know how. One thing I don't know if it's certain, but apparently you can't create a custom struct inside C++, then expose that to blueprint when you're creating another struct. You can't inherit C++ struct, it seems. You can only do that with data tables and other kind of stuff, which is I wish there were a better way to do that. Speaking of blueprint, one thing that also bugged me is that you can't add custom macros in C++ to blueprint. I wish there was a kind of way to integrate more easily. You can make a macros in C++. I don't think you can expose that to blueprint, which makes sense, but I feel like it could be better integrated, if you say so. One other thing that bugs me the hell off compared to Unity is namespace. When you're creating a script in Unity, you need to have namespace. Well, you don't need to have namespace, but it's best practice. In C++, there are also namespace, and it's a very good practice to have namespace. Well, it turns out Unreal doesn't really support namespace for some reason. People say that because of using macros, the namespace can't really be integrated well. And so now everything code is lived without using namespace, which is you can still like create a subfolders or like filters to organize your code and scripts on all that kind of stuff. But I'm still like pissed off that if, let's say, if I'm gonna use something else, a library or something like that, I can't use namespaces. especially for example, if I'm gonna create a custom car script, let's say custom car vehicle. The only problem is if I'm gonna reference, for example, let's say I'm gonna create an enum called steering type. In Unreal, the chaos vehicle system is also using that enum's name. So if I reference steering type, they're gonna reference car vehicle physics steering type, which I don't want to. So the possibility that you're gonna have name collision is very likely because you can't separate it with namespaces. Yes, you can add underscores or something prefix or suffix. It is a little bit annoying that you can't use namespace when it's a very big part of programming, especially name collision, and you want to like separate and organize your code basically. Now, one thing that I wished that Unreal had was Unity's reference system. When you call, for example, the camera or the game object, you can actually drag the game object or the camera component to a specific slot on the script as a reference basically. In Unreal, you don't have that, but you have that you can comment. You can name the component or the actor or whatever you want inside a I forget what it is, but like a F name situation. So you can grab the name, and then in the C++ or blueprint you can access or try to get access to that component or actor from the actual name that you have given in the input. But it's not the same as Unity to drag a reference into a slot than having that reference, because if I change the name of the actor or the component, then I need to change that as well inside of the reference system in Unreal. Where Unity, when you just reference something, you don't need to keep in mind the name. You can change the name, you can change the location, you can change everything about it. You still have the reference to it, which is quite nice. One thing that bugs me the hell off is Unreal using centimeters instead of meters. I think Unity doesn't use meter, but use just a common unit, like one unit. So you get it's similar to meters basically. So I researched why Unreal is using centimeters. Apparently it has to do with the physics system. You get better physics to run if you have a smaller unit than meters. The only problem is that why can't Unreal just change the visually to meter? So for example, let's say if I want to measure a car, then it's 4 meters in the length, or 3 meters or 2 meters, whatever. But in backhand it converts from 4 meters to centimeters, so 400 centimeters, right? I wish that Unreal would sort of basically convert backhand so it's more visually pleasing to see in meters, and also in the editor. So for example, character movement, if you're moving 400 centimeters per second, it's very confusing because you generally don't use centimeters when you're talking about meter per seconds. So I think it would make sense to have like that you're moving 5 meters per second, then in the background you're changing from 5 meters per second to 500 centimeters per second. I think it would make more sense and be more comfortable. Okay, so apparently Unreal does already have this feature. Are you fucking kidding me? Bro, Unreal, please marry me. My god, Unity needs this feature so bad. Unreal, thank you so much. Okay, let's get back to the video. But hey, is Unreal. Speaking of backhand, one thing I hate about Unreal is that it lacks support to different formats. Well, I say that it does support most things, but I have some couple things that it doesn't really support. For example, MP3. I recently learned that MP3 was a not open source, but a you need to have a license in order to import the MP3 files, which is quite ironic because everyone is using MP3. So I don't really understand why the licensing is that way, but it makes sense why Unreal doesn't have support for that. I think it has support to .wav or wave or wave. I don't know how to pronounce that, but also OGG. So that's nice to see. I think it supports all the texturing formats and all the 3D models, and also the 3D formats. One thing it doesn't really support is the AE, which I don't know why Unreal doesn't support them. Also, one thing that it bugs me the hell off when it comes to importing 3D models is that Unreal is separating the models. You can recombine all the actors or the static mesh components if you want to. You have a tool to combine the actors into one, but I don't know why Unreal is like separating. Maybe if you want to have separate mesh and you want to change the location or scale or something like that, but why are you separating when you don't really need to? Make an option afterwards that if you want to separate them, you have a button for doing that. But why are you separating the mesh when you're importing some stuff? Also, the import is very weird because you have import all, but then when I try to import all, it doesn't really work. The only time it worked was if I have two same sort of model and dragging those two into Unreal. But if I drag a folder or something else, it doesn't really work that way. I don't know if Unreal is gonna improve that feature, but it is very weird when becoming a newcomer and it doesn't really work the way you intended to. So I've been recently learning about all the tools in Unreal. So one thing that have been quite challenging is Niagara. It's supposed to be better than the last effects Unreal had tool, but it's very different workflow compared to material or the blueprint graph or other things in Unreal. It's a very bit different because there's multiple things you can approach the Niagara system, which is quite complex and weird, but hey, it works. One thing that I think that Unreal needs to have is mute or change the volume inside when you're playing the game. You can actually change the volume when you're outside, and you can actually preview some sound effects and some ambient sound and all that kind of stuff, but you can't really change in-game. I don't know if you can, but apparently you can't. Speaking of in-game, you cannot also see the game view whilst you're playing in the game view. Now Unity does this very great, because if, let's say, you are playing a first person shooter and you want to see if the player is actually facing the right way, or the gun is the right way, or something else, enemy spawning or something like that, you can't really see in the game view, so you need to use scene view. That's a great option for Unity, and I'm a little bit sad that Unreal doesn't have that. You can play in the viewport in the editor side and then pause the game, and you can look, you don't have to pause the game, but you can exit the game view into the scene view, but you can't have those two views at the same time, which is quite a little bit frustrating. The last thing that I think a downside to Unreal is the marketplace. The marketplace is a very great place to sell and publish tools and assets to our Unreal users. The only problem is very expensive. I've seen almost a couple assets, well, most assets above $100 compared to Unity, which is less than $5 or something like that. And I get that hard work means money, but yeah, I think Unity has more free stuff and low cost assets and tools compared to Unreal. But Unreal also have a lot of AAA quality of the tools and assets. It doesn't have also a lot of assets and tools in Unreal compared to Unity. Unity is more indie and have a lot of more users, I think, compared to Unreal. So therefore, Unity is going to be more competitive and have more resources. Now let's move from the downside to Unreal to now the good things about Unreal. And the first thing is that Blueprint support JSON. I don't know why Unity doesn't really support JSON from the get-go. I think it's like the most common way to data serialization or just formatting text and all that kind of stuff. So I think this is a great way to introduce JSON. Speaking of Blueprint, I think the most tools is well integrated to each other and have some sort of similar things and approach to. For example, the material editor and blueprint graph and the animation graph is very similar in style and approach. So you are very familiar and comfortable when working with one thing like blueprint graph and then switching over to material graph. The only downside is you need to keep in mind a lot of nodes and the system and the settings and all that kind of stuff. But other than that, then it's very integrated, well integrated to each other. One thing that I think is very cool and awesome is that every actor in Unreal has a blueprint attached to it, I think. Well, some sort of logic attached to it, compared to on Unity, which a GameObject doesn't have really logic. It has transform, which is sort of logic, but you can't really change that logic. There we go. But for example, let's say if I'm gonna create a GameObject in Unity, then I want the GameObject to move or rotate. Then I need to create another script and attach to that. And if I want to reuse that script, I need to use a sort of generic approach to it. Where in Unreal, you can attach a actor, which is sort of GameObject, and then you can attach some code behind that actor in that circuit of logic, which is quite interesting approach and very like smart and game design approach. So that's one of the best features I really love about Unreal. Unreal is also open source. I don't really use open source or like have the knowledge to change some stuff in open source, but it's great for the people that really love open source. Also, if they see an error, bug, or something they want to change, then they have the possibility, which is great. One thing I said before is that Unreal has a lot of components that is sort of similar to Unity, which is more focused to game development. For example, you have a projectile movement component, you have character movement component, you have movement component, and you have rotating movement component. So these are basically the basic things to basically do some stuff in Unreal. And the greatest part is that you can create some amazing stuff with just those components in less than 5 minutes. So for example, let's say if I want to have a coin that spins like a platformer. So you have a coin that goes up and down, then spins in your angle. You can do that in Unreal in less than 5 minutes. You have to attach the rotating movement component and the movement component, and you need to change some configuration, and then you basically in Unity you need to create a GameObject, and you need to create a script. Then you need to create that script to be more or less generic script, so you can attach to other things. And inside that script you need to do some logic, you need to do some scripting, and you need to do some approach, how to move up and down and spin around and all that kind of stuff. Once you got that down, you need to attach that script to that component and GameObject and all that kind of stuff, and reference all that kind of stuff. So it takes more time to do that in Unity compared to Unreal, I think. So this is one of the features I also love about Unreal. It's very fast and very good approach to game development. And you can also see that Unreal was developed by game developers because Unreal has support for multiplayers in a nice way compared to Unity. In Unity is very humble and very weird to develop. In Unreal is very, I haven't developed a multiplayer game yet, but I've seen that the tools that they're already giving is very integrated with Unreal Engine. For example, when you want to play the game, you can actually select how many players should play the game. For example, 3 players, 4 players, or something like that. So you can simulate how it's gonna handle in the network system compared to Unity, which is not the nicest thing to develop or integrate it with Unity, but it works in Unity. I think Unreal really hit this point in the perfect way for developing a multiplayer game, especially when Unreal has Fortnite and Unity doesn't really have anything. You had Kagaya, which is now shut down. You have Chop Shop, which is also shut down. So I think it's very sad that Unity doesn't have really a big title that is developed by them that they can show off and have more feature combined. Like Fortnite, one of the things in Unreal I heard that was developed for just Fortnite was the water physics system, and now Unreal is getting the water physics system. So that's one of the nice things I feel like Unreal has when it comes to game development. And the last thing I want to speak up with is that Unreal has a couple assets that's going to be free each month, which is great if you want to have some free stuff and just pick up some stuff for free, which is awesome compared to Unity, which has I don't know months, but I heard there are some couple events then they have a sort of discount and sometimes free asset in that discount, which is quite awesome. But I feel like Unreal has each month and supporting free asset, which is great news. Also inside the Unity Unreal, they also bought or just released a free asset that is completely free forever, which is great. So if you want to have an asset forever that was paid from the beginning, but is now free, and Unreal does that for you. So I think it's very great. Conclusion: do I think Unreal is better than Unity? Yes and no. Unreal is very great for AAA games. I think it's also great for a stylized game. I haven't heard much about it, and I want to develop some games in that style because it's very niche genre. And Quicksoul Bridge, I don't know if it has support for stylized game. I don't think so, because Quicksoul Bridge was used mostly for like a realistic environment. So I don't know about that. But one thing that Unity has greatly improved is 2D stuff. So Unreal, I don't know if Unreal support 2D. I think so. But in Unity, the 2D system and then the 2D like AKI, IKA and all that kind of stuff is very supported in Unity. Unity's input system is also great. I found that Unreal's input system, the enhanced input system, is very little bit weird, but it's similar to Unity's input system, but yeah, like I said, a little bit weird to manage and all that kind of stuff. One thing that I'm pretty angry about with Unreal is that it doesn't have support for DualShock 4, which I'm currently using to develop games. You can download a program called DS for Windows, which basically emulates DualShock 4 into Xbox 360, which is great if you don't have support for DualShock 4. The only problem is that in Unreal you have a plugin called DualShock 4 Windows, something like that, but it doesn't really do anything. I think the only thing it supported was some audio stuff, some rumble. I think that was the only things that was really supported with that plugin, so that was weird. Also, I've seen some forums and comments about raw input in Unreal plugin that you can support some custom input device. The only problem is that you need to filter out some stuff when it comes to DualShock 4, and also a lot of stuff that is only for DualShock 4. For example, it has a microphone, microphone, also headset and speaker. I want to have a feature called for the speaker stuff, but if anyone that's working with Unreal have any clue how to support speaker or gamepad, then let me know. I think I have seen some option when it comes to meta sounds and sound cue and all that kind of stuff that you have support for gamepad speaker, but it doesn't really work with DualShock 4. I'm assuming it works for Xbox One gamepad and all that kind of stuff, but apparently no support for DualShock 4, which is quite annoying because there's a lot of users that uses DualShock 4, and the only way to really get support for DualShock 4 is to have integration with Sony, or like the license for developing PlayStation games, which is gonna cost you, so I rather not. So but yeah, that's only things I have pet peeves and good things about Unreal. What are things you like about Unreal, and what are things you hate about Unreal? And also, speaking of that, what are things you like about Unity, and what are things you hate about Unity that which Unreal have? Let me know. And I will see you in the next video. I have some interesting video coming up, but it's gonna take a while. But anyway, I'm gonna see you in the next video. Have a great day, and bye.